In a short devotional on Psalm 45, Paul Tripp asks the following questions. Do you love God? Do you love God? After a short pause, during which I think most believers would probably quickly answer yes. Yes, I do love God. He asks again, do you really love God? And has that love captured your heart in such a way that it shapes your life? The second question, building on the first, causes us to answer not simply in an intellectual or reactionary way, but rather answering from the heart. Do I love God in such a way that my whole life is shaped by that love? Continuing on in his devotional, he then asks the question, could you write a love song for God? How would you do that? What words would you use to express your love to the Lord? What qualities would you emphasize? Now, this might seem like a strange question, especially for Reformed Baptists, but we can't deny that the things we love are the things that get a powerful love song written about them or written to them. Think of the volumes of poetry. Think of the number one hit songs over the decades. A majority of them will take the form of a love song. A song which expresses love that shapes one's whole life. Again, we might feel a bit strange about that question. Could you write a love song for God? But we can't help but recall the greatest commandments. Deuteronomy 6:5, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. In other words, love the Lord in such a way that your whole life is shaped by that love. And with that verse in mind, we come to Psalm 45, and what do we find? Well, we find, as the superscription says, a love song. Now, at first read, we'll read this in a moment. As we read through it, we might say, well, yes, it's a love song. We can't deny that. But it appears to be a love song written out of a celebration over a royal wedding. And that is true. The historical setting here is a royal wedding, possibly a wedding of King Solomon. But we have to be very careful that we don't see this song as merely a bit of ancient Near East history about wedding ceremonies. Because as we read this and study it, we will see that it is an expression of gospel theology. Gospel theology is the undercurrent in this whole song. We see this with another similar Old Testament text, the Song of Solomon. On the surface, it seems to be a story of a couple who go from courtship to wedding to married life. But as we read the passage in Ephesians that we read earlier in our service, we see that things begin to plunge deeper into gospel theology. Christ's love for the church is pictured in the husband's love for his wife. And Psalm 45, a love song, does the exact same. And it must be understood in light of New Testament teaching on marriage. Now, it's no small thing to say that this psalm is a most unique psalm. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind song in the Psalter. It's the only psalm written as a love song. And again, while this feature might make us a bit uncomfortable, we should not avoid it. Rather, with appropriateness and right understanding, we should lean into this song, allowing the affections of our hearts to be exposed and drawing out the answer to that question, do I really love God? So with that introduction, let us read these words from Psalm 45. To the choir master, according to Lilies, a maskil of the sons of Korah, a love song. My heart overflows with a pleasing theme. I address my verses to the king. My tongue is like the pen of a ready scribe. You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore, God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and majesty. In your majesty, ride out victoriously for the cause of truth and meekness and righteousness. Let your right hand teach you awesome deeds. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies. The people fall under you. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of your kingdom is a scepter of uprightness. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. Your robes are all fragrant with myrrh and aloes and cassia. From ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. Daughters of kings are among your ladies of honor. At your right hand stands the queen in gold of Ophir. Hear, O daughter, and consider and incline your ear. Forget your people and your father's house, and the king will desire your beauty. Since he is your Lord, bow to him. The people of Tyre will seek your favor with gifts, the richest of the peoples. All glorious is the princess in her chamber, with robes interwoven with gold. In many-colored robes she is led to the king, with her virgin companions following behind her. With joy and gladness they are led along as they enter the palace of the king. The place of your father shall be your sons. You will make them princes in all the earth. I will cause your name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore, nations will praise you forever and ever. For our study this morning, we're going to approach this psalm as we have with some of the other psalms that we've looked at. Even though we don't know the historical moments, we do want to get a sense of the historical setting. We do want to capture this royal wedding. And to follow up the historical setting, we want to look at the theological reality. Again, the doctrine of Christ and the church. And then lastly, we want to consider the implications of this psalm on our lives. What is our response, our reaction, our application today? We'll begin with the historical setting. If we look at this, the majority of this psalm is focused on the king, who is identified as the bridegroom. But notice in verse 1 the joy on the heart of the psalmist. The emotion that he has as he is a part of this royal wedding. He says in verse 1, my heart overflows. It seems from the text that he's been tasked with writing this wedding song for this special day. And his songwriting is like the greatest author's pen to paper, or the greatest artist's brush on the canvas. There is this desire to create for this celebration something that does justice to the beauty that is on display. And that desire then in verse 1 takes us into the rest of the song. In verses 2 to 9 there is found praise of the king. Praise of the king. The psalmist again is going to paint with words the joy that he beholds for this king, this bridegroom. And there are three words which capture the scene on that day: beauty, majesty, and justice. Now, the wedding day can transform any man, no matter how rough or disheveled he normally is, into a well put together presentation, right? You have the nice suit, the shined shoes, the clean haircut. His presentation before his bride, before the guest, displays the importance of the day. And we see that in verse 2. You are the most handsome of the sons. There's beauty. As king, there is also the display of his rule and reign. It is marked by steadiness and strength and protection. Verse 3, gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one. It's the kind of rule that subjects are happy to live under. The kind of rule that the subjects love to celebrate. In verse 3, in your splendor and majesty. beauty, majesty. Thirdly, there's justice. There is celebration at this wedding because the king has clearly fought for his people. He stands up for all. Everyone is safe under his protection. I encourage you to read through verses 4 through 7. I think it's an excellent crash course on good leadership. A willingness to fight for what is right. A heart for the weak and the vulnerable, standing up for what is true and noble. And again, this type of rule is a rule worth celebrating, especially on a wedding day. From here, in verse 10, the psalmist then describes the calling of and the arrival of the bride. And in verses 10 to 15, there are two key words that come through there: loyalty and procession. On the wedding day, something special and unique is created. A family that did not exist now exists. We know this from the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis 2:24. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And then, as we saw in Ephesians 5, this new family is expressed as there is total commitment. As there is a commitment to love and to lead, to cherish and to protect the bride. And there is submission and loyalty to follow and obey the bridegroom. The past is laid aside and the focus is on the one to whom you are making a vow. And the psalmist here captures the beauty of biblical loyalty. The whole wedding day is an exciting day. If you think back, for those who are married, think back on that. There's the hours of preparation. If you've been a guest at a wedding, you know that you spend a lot of time waiting around for the wedding to begin. They very rarely start with the time that was printed on the invitation. For the husbands, you all remember the butterflies in your stomach as you waited for the ceremony. But there is that most significant moment which begins with the procession. All goes quiet for a moment. The back doors open, a special song begins to play, and the bride steps forward and begins to walk down the aisle. There's nothing like a wedding procession. And the psalmist captures that here in verse 13. All glorious is the princess. And while all eyes are on the bride, we all know that the bride's eyes are searching for but one person. One man, the bridegroom. And it's this moment of procession which launches the ceremony of the day into, as we see in the text, joy and gladness. But that's not the end of the story. That's not the end of the song. The final two verses of Psalm 45 look beyond the day of the ceremony into the rest of married life. There is the future promises. There's the blessings that come with marriage. There is the call to be fruitful and multiply. A new family is not only established on the wedding day, but a new family begins to grow. And the psalmist looks forward to the days ahead for this young couple who will become parents and grandparents. A couple who have the promise of God, the covenant of God. And particularly here for the king, verse 6, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. Echoed in verse 17, I will cause your name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore, nations will praise you forever and ever. And so it's with these lines, this historical setting, that we are then moved into the theological reality. A reality which is rooted in God's promise to his people. A reality which is seen in the gift of marriage, which we read of in Ephesians 5. But before we go there, I do want to touch on one application from a unique passage like this, from a love song. A passage which is a song written for a unique and special occasion. And that is, as believers, we need to highly value marriage. We must recognize that marriage is not a socially constructed institution. It is a gift from God, and it is to be highly valued. And this high value calls us to action, to promote and to defend biblical marriage. Marriage which is to be between one man and one woman, monogamous and a lifetime commitment, unifying with a glorious calling. And I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but in our current day, we must think and speak that way. Marriage is to be between one man and one woman. It is a lifetime commitment to one another and only to one another. It is not a partnership, as we like to call it these days. And I think as Christians, we must stop using that term, that language. Marriage is a unique making of two into one flesh. It's not partnership, it's union. It's not for selfish reasons, but it is for God-glorifying reasons, to be fruitful and to multiply, to fill the earth with the proclamation of the goodness and glory of God, whether that comes through procreation or through a life commitment to making Christ known. Church, we must not shrink back from the amazing gift that the Lord has given. We must not belittle or twist the importance and impact of marriage on this world. We must promote and defend, highly value God-glorifying marriage. And as we look at the theological reality, we see just how joyful this really is. A profound mystery which refers to Christ and the church. So that brings us to the theological reality. Ephesians 5, which we read earlier this morning, I think it serves as a really good starting point. But I think we also need to look at Hebrews chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. As we think about this picture of marriage and Christ and the church. Because the author of Hebrews, in the opening words of this letter, applies Psalm 45 to Jesus Christ himself. Words will be on the screen. The author writes, "But of the Son," again, that's Jesus Christ. "Of the Son," he says, "your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions." By referencing back to Psalm 45, certainly a song about the king of Israel, and again, that could be David, likely Solomon, but it could be another king as well. The author of Hebrews here is clear that Psalm 45 is ultimately about Jesus Christ. This is a messianic psalm, a psalm which looks forward to Christ, and a psalm which describes Jesus Christ. The king of this passage, the king of the events recorded, is merely a foreshadowing, a type, a picture of the true king. For only Jesus can fulfill what is spoken of here in Psalm 45. The king of Psalm 45 is great, but King Jesus is greater. And this is true of all three key words that we noted: beauty, majesty, and justice. We see all of these in the person of Jesus Christ. Now we know that it's true that for earthly rulers, physical appearance is often one of the first things noted. And might I say, that's not just a secular thing, but it's even found in the Bible. 1 Samuel 9:2, Saul, a handsome young man. There was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. From his shoulders upwards, he was taller than any of the people. David before Goliath in 1 Samuel 17:42. When he looked, that's Goliath. When he looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. 2 Samuel 14:25. Now in all Israel there was no one so much to be praised for his handsome appearance as Absalom. From the sole of his foot to the crown of his head there was no blemish in him. Isaiah 33, verse 17, a messianic passage looking forward to Christ as king. We read, "Your eyes will behold the king in his beauty." Now, if you're familiar with Scripture, you might ask yourself, particularly with that last verse, does this not contradict what we see elsewhere in the Bible? Right? I mean, we jump 20 chapters from Isaiah 33 to Isaiah 53, also speaking about Jesus Christ. And Isaiah writes there, "He has no form or majesty that we should look at him, no beauty that we should desire him." Verse 3, "He was despised and rejected. Men hid their face." How do we make sense of this in light of what we read here in Psalm 45? Well, for that, we do need to see how God views the beauty of an individual. And in 1 Samuel 16:7, we read, "For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on" what? The heart. Now, we do need to be careful that we don't totally reject beauty. The Lord created all things beautiful and good. Well, we're not being called to reject beauty, but rather we are seeing is the higher priority on character, purity, holiness, godliness. And if we consider the life of Christ, is that not what we see, right? The one true King, perfect in all of these ways, the most beautiful Savior, as we sung. We also can't help but notice his majesty, his glory. We know on earth that this is something that most people missed, right? He had no majesty that we should look at him. Despised and rejected, Isaiah would write. When we read in the New Testament, he made himself nothing, taking the form of a servant. But notice where he comes from. Jesus says, "For I have come down" from where? From heaven. And where is King Jesus now? He's gone into heaven. He's at the right hand of God, 1 Peter 3. Philippians 2, God has highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name that is above every name. Going back to our passage from last week, Jesus Christ is the one true King. King of kings, Lord of lords, the one sovereign over all. He is the one to whom the heavenly host and the redeemed in heaven will fall down and worship forever and ever, seen in the vision of John. He is the majestic one, the one of glory, the one to be worshipped. Thirdly, he is just. He always does that which is good. As Psalm 45 indicates there, he loves righteousness. His rule, just as his character, is pure. But we also must notice that he is not just, but as Hebrews tells us, he is also the justifier. He does what is good and right on our behalf. Those who are weak and helpless and held captive by sin, he has been victorious, rescuing and redeeming. He has crushed the head of the serpent. He has brought death to death, just as sharp arrows pierce the heart of the enemy, described of the king here in Psalm 45. He does not hide behind his wrath. Rather, he deals with it as only he can. Beauty, majesty, and justice. This is what describes our King, King Jesus. And what does Paul say about the heart of our King? It's a heart of love, right? It's a husband-like love, sacrificial and unconditional and fully committed. A love that's willing to lay down his life. A love that leads with the good of the other in focus. A love that humbly serves. A love that draws the heart of the bride. So that when the procession begins and all eyes are on her, her eyes are looking for just one. And that brings us to our response. Because as we see in Ephesians 5, church, you are the bride of Christ. The call for a response in this psalm is quite simple. Loyalty. Verse 11. Since he is your king, bow to him. As a wife submits to her husband, the church submits to Christ. As the wife follows her husband, the church follows Christ. The former ways are no more. He is the head. There is union with him. His ways are our ways. His worship is our worship. And notice, just as in marriage, when understood according to God's instruction, there is joy. There is joy and delight as God's people are led along towards him. And this joy comes as there is union with Christ. This joy grows as there are blessings that continue to spring up. There is joy everlasting because he is King forever and ever. As we draw to a close, I want to examine our response to King Jesus. Whether you're here this morning and you're a mature Christian, you've been a believer for many years. Maybe you're a new Christian. Maybe you don't know what you make of Jesus Christ and Christianity and the Bible. We see here, as we've seen with the other Psalms, Christ is King. No matter what you think or believe about that, it is certain he is King of all. And the question for you is, how does what you think about him shape your life? Is it one of apathy or doubt? Duty or discouragement? Or is it one described here in Psalm 45, joy and gladness, delight? On the back of the service guide, there are a series of questions, and I'm going to read those in closing. But can I encourage you that take some time this week and in some serious contemplation, consider your true response to Christ. To that question, do I really love him? Does my love for God, for Christ, does it really shape my living? 3 questions. What specific things in my life am I holding on to that might be preventing me from submitting to the rule and love of the Lord Jesus Christ? We're all going to have something that we can write there. It's going to be different from person to person. But what is it that is pulling on our hearts away from submitting to the kind of love that we see in this song? Question 2. How does seeing Christ as the true bridegroom change the way I read this psalm? Think about God. Think about the gospel. How can my life be a song of praise to him right now? Again, how can my life be shaped according to the love that I have for God, for Christ, and the gospel?